Thank you very, very much for the pleasure of your collegiate company. First, a word of hospitality to our very distinguished guests from some of the most prestigious colleges and universities in Metro Manila. Welcome to UP Campus. Second, a word of gratitude for my friends and colleagues here for inviting me to come back to my own alma mater. You know how much I love the University of the Philippines, where the students are the best, the brightest, the bravest, the most articulate, and the most prone to self-delusion. President Aquino has nominated me for the position of Judge of the International Criminal Court. I would be in a position to make history and to bring honor to our country. But today, I started to think twice about this new career opportunity because I got a message from my friends on Twitter and my friends from Twitter and Facebook. The message is, para fair ang labanan, sa susunod, magpadala tayo ng interpreter sa Miss Universe. Ipadala natin si Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. Pwede na rin si Kuya Kim Atienza para may konting trivia. When I was a student here, I was a very, very committed student. I was very, very busy, not only trying to stay in honor roll, but also in many various extracurricular activities. For example, I was editor of the Philippine Collegian, and at the same time, I was co-sponsor of the UPROTC, not once, but twice. Which only shows that lightning can strike twice. I never had time to get picked up by any of the males in this campus. Because at that time, I was fully convinced that all males had the brains of an amoeba. I have brought with me today someone very close to me, and actually, you'd be surprised, someone very shy. So I told her, you must meet the students of Metro Manila, and you'll see how impressive they are. I want her to stand up so you can see her, Miss Hart Evangelista. She's a twice awarded Best Actress in Philippine films, but she has no self-confidence, I discover. If you want to teach her self-confidence, can you please first get in touch with me so that I can verify if your intentions are honorable. Actually, she's available on Facebook. She told me yesterday, one time she got lost in Hong Kong, and a man was following her from floor to floor on a department store. She got very frightened and had an almost traumatic experience and burst into tears. That is the kind of feminine personality Hart has. So I told her, no, why should you get frightened? You should have turned around and confronted your fears. You should have stood up very straight in front of that Chinaman who was stalking you, and you should have said, see anything you like? If you like anything, it's $50. But for $50 more, your wife can watch. I think if you keep coming with me, Hart, you will get educated very soon. Anyway, I was a very, very committed student. I always woke up at 5 o'clock and then went to church. And then I devoted myself to study the entire day and the entire night, which was the opposite of what my dorm mates used to do. They devoted themselves to, let us call it, extra sexual activities. And then when exam week came, they all went to St. Jude, the patron saint of the impossible. I never got picked up by anybody here in the Philippines or abroad. But now I know that there are certain pick-up lines that would prove irresistible to young people of this generation. For example, why don't you try the following? Kung magkakaroon ka ng sariling planeta, gusto ko ikaw ang axis nito. Para sa iyo lang iikot ang mundo ko. Sana Facebook status ka na lang para pwede kitang i-like. Ibenta mo na bahay mo. Tutal, nandito ka na, nakatira sa puso ko. Sana naka-off ang ilaw para tayo na lang mag-on. Never mind the lecture. I've been lecturer here for 10 years. And I don't see that I ever improved anybody's IQ. Noodles ka ba? Kasi lucky me. Ang bahay ko ay parang siso. Pag wala ka, down ako. Para kang hold-upper. Lahat ibibigay ko sa iyo. Huwag mo lang akong saktan. Ang galing mo din, ano? Di mo pa ako binabato, tinamaan na ako sa iyo. Maglaro tayo ng kahit ano, wag lang taguan. Kasi a girl like you is hard to find. Sana exam mo na lang ako para sagutin mo din ako. Bastos ka rin, ano? Di ka man lang nagpapaalam, tuloy-tuloy kang pumasok sa puso ko. Google ka ba? Lahat kasi nang hinahanap ko, sa iyo ko natagpuan eh. Hindi ko alam ang katapusan ng universe, pero alam ko ang simula, you and I. Nakalimutan ko ang pangalan mo eh. Pwede bang tawagin na lang kitang akin? So dumb. If my husband had ever tried any of these lines, I would have bashed his teeth in. Nakalunok ka ba ng quitis? Kasi pag ngumiti ka, may spark. This is what Dr. Bienvenido Cabral said to Dr. Esperanza Cabral when they were both students in the UP College of Medicine. Sana ikaw ang cardiologist ko, para ikaw ang mag-aalaga sa puso ko. Sana scientist ako, para ikaw naman ang lab ko. Tindera ka ba ng Yossi? Kasi you give me hope. Kasi you give me hope and more. Para kang cactus, kasi handa akong masaktan, mayakap ka lang. Pag wala ka, ang buhay ko parang lapis na hindi pa natatasahan. Pointless. Alright, let's go to question and answer. Tanong, paano mo sasabihin sa isang babae na mataba siya, na hindi siya mababastos? Sagot, excuse me, miss, Mang Tomas ba ang lotion mo? Guy 1, kumusta ang exam mo? Guy 2, puro blanco. Guy 1, patay. Guy 2, bakit? Guy 1, baka isipin nila nagkopyahan tayo. I never thought I would enter politics when I was studying so hard here in UP to prepare for my professional future. I always thought that I would someday be a rocket scientist or an astrophysicist or even a lion tamer. But I never wanted to enter politics. I was simply forced by circumstance. And I am afraid I was seduced by the young people of this country. Once I entered politics, it became natural, being a civil, God-fearing, law-abiding citizen, for me to lose my temper because politicians are... I will... So, kailangan kong minsan sa politika para lang mabuhay ka, to survive, if not to prevail, kailangan magmataray ka. Kaya lang, iba naman klaseng taray ito. Itong mga sinasabi na ito. Hindi ko sinasabing maganda ako. Ang sinasabi ko lang, pangit ka. Pag nakikita kita, parang gusto ko mag-sorry sa mga mata ko. Wife, ibili mo akong bagong bra. Husband, huwag ka na mag-bra. Maliit naman boobs mo eh. Wife, bakit ikaw nagbi-brief? Heart Evangelista is so beautiful. People often tell her how beautiful she is. And she always says she feels extremely mortified when she hears it. So I told her, don't do that. Why should you be so shy? And why should you be embarrassed? And I told her, when someone told me, ang ganda mo, I answered, sana ikaw rin. At a swimming pool, classmate 1, I'm sure lulutang ka. Remember in UP, PE is swimming. Classmate 2, bakit? Dahil payat ako? Classmate 1, hindi, dahil plastic ka. When the cashier at the grocery said, Miss, pwedeng candy na lang ang sukli ko sa iyo? I told her, bakit? Tsokolate bang binayad ko? When the husband says, when I'm gone, you'll never find another man like me, the wife replied, what makes you think I'd want another man like you? This is what I learned in my 8 years in UP campus. I never learned this when I went to Harvard or Cambridge or Oxford. They were just dull. I will now go to my assigned topic, reproductive. Reproductive rights as part of human rights. Our topic is the nature of reproductive rights as part of the greater sum of human rights. In legal terms, human rights form the totality of the freedoms, immunities, and benefits that, according to modern values, especially at an international level, all human beings should be able to claim as a matter of right in the society in which they live. In international law, the basic document is the non-binding. Binding means you can go to court and sue the person. In international law, the basic document is the non-binding but authoritative Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But it is accompanied by two binding documents, meaning to say, if one state does not observe these rights, another state can sue it in an international tribunal. By the way, the only reason I'm interested in a post in the International Criminal Court is that I shall finally meet Muammar Gaddafi. I'm going to educate that man. The binding documents are known as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. In national or domestic law, that is to say Philippine law, not international law, the basic document is the Philippine Constitution, particularly Article 2 on Declaration of State Policies and Article 3 on the Bill of Rights. Our Constitution, Article 2, Section 12, specifically provides, quote, the state shall protect and promote the right to health of the people and instill health consciousness among them. We're a very rare country because we have a constitutionally protected right to health. Normally, you don't find this in other constitutions. This right to health is now viewed as including the right to reproductive health. Reproductive rights constitute the totality of a person's constitutionally protected rights relating to the control of his or her procreative activities. Specifically, reproductive rights refer to the cluster of civil liberties relating to pregnancy, abortion, and sterilization, especially the personal bodily rights of a woman in her decision whether to become pregnant or to bear a child. The phrase reproductive rights includes the idea of being able to make reproductive decisions free from discrimination, coercion, or violence. Human rights scholars increasingly consider many reproductive rights to be protected by international human rights law. So when we speak of human rights, we are actually speaking of reproductive rights as part of that sum total. When we speak of Philippine internal laws and politics, we are speaking of the so-called horizontal strand of the human rights movement. But as constitutionalism spreads among states, we now speak of the so-called vertical strand of the new international law that is meant to bind states and that is implemented by the new international institutions. Filipino politicians seem to be aware only of the horizontal but not of the vertical dimension of the human rights movement. Yan kasing napala nila kasi hindi sila pumunta sa UP. Nasabi ng may horizontal, may vertical, nakatanga pa rin. But the truly novel developments of the last half-century have involved primarily the vertical dimension. Thus, contrary to the misimpression of many of our politicians, the national debate on reproductive health is not only limited to the Constitution, but necessarily includes Philippine obligations under the legally binding obligations of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, as well as other treaties to which the Philippines is a state party. Sinabihan na sila, we are not an archipelago universe. We're only part of a bigger planet. And among these planets are various states, and we enter into treaties with each other, or contracts, or agreements, or whatever else might call them, covenants, declarations, proclamations, etc. But in effect, it is just like a contract between people. You have to abide by what you said in the contract. We already joined, or became, to use a legal term, state parties to many of these treaties. And still Filipino politicians are discussing whether we should discuss the RH bill. We are already committed to pass an RH law by what we did many years before. These people are living in a time warp. Next time, I'm going to advocate genetically modified candidates for senator. The urgency of enforcing reproductive rights in our country was raised as early as 1993 at the Vienna World Conference when the UN Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights drew attention